This next session is sponsored by Ford Motor Company. Please welcome Executive Chair of Ford Motor Company, Bill Ford, and Special Correspondent and Anchor at WDIV TV4 NBC, Christy McDonald.
Good afternoon, Mackinac. It is great to see everybody as everyone kind of filters in and finds their seat. You know, I don't think it's going to be lost on anyone, Bill, that we're talking about the future of the automotive industry in a place where there are no autos to speak of.
Yeah, true.
So let's go ahead and start. I mean, when you're in rooms like this, I can only imagine with the state of where we are and what you're working on, that people have a lot of advice for you and they come up to you and say, Bill, you know what you ought to do?
Yeah, well, listen, cars is one thing people have always had opinions on. I mean, you know, everywhere I go, somebody wants to tell me, you know, you should have restyled the Mustang differently or, you know, but I love that. It means people love cars. They've always had a love affair with cars. But our world is changing, and it's changing quickly. And it was interesting listening to Fareed. One of the things that he just said was, we're not investing for the future. Well, I actually feel, in our case, that's completely wrong. That's all we're doing is investing for the future. And it's not just because our industry is changing, but because I feel like I'm working for my children and my grandchildren. And I want to leave them a Ford Motor Company that is much stronger in 20, 30 years than it is today. So, you know, it was interesting to hear him say that, and I hadn't really thought of that nationally, that was the case. I actually don't think that's true for us. In fact, I know it's not.
So when we talk about our love affair with cars, in America's love affair with it, I mean, I know that there's, you know, a new generation of people that say, gosh, ride sharing, man, I don't want a car. Or some kids, some teenagers don't even want to get their driver's license. How would you describe what our love affair is with the automobile?
Well, it's gone through lots of, you know, so in the 60s, people were writing songs about it, right? I mean, and then there were all kinds of, you know, personal memories of back seats and all those kinds of things. But But I think, you know, I actually don't think it's changed much. I think one of the things that has changed is, you know, you go back to the 50s and 60s, and people could work on their own cars because they were simple, and the engines were simple, so people could change the spark plugs. You'd see them out front, you know, changing the oil. But vehicles have gotten, you know, ever more complicated, and of course now with all the software going in, you know, they're getting even more complicated. So I think, you know, but people still love cars, and in fact, the young people you mentioned, when we check out our website, young people are the ones who are configuring vehicles on our website. The problem is affordability. Vehicles have gotten really expensive, and you know, a new vehicle is tough for, you know, 18, 19, 20, you know, kind of almost up to, you know, into 30s to afford. And we're trying to fix that. You know, we just came out with the Maverick truck, which was, you know, priced, you know, very, very low, and it's been a huge success. But we need to do more of that. And I think that, more than anything, is preventing young people from really engaging the car industry.
Well, I think that really takes us into the conversation of the changeover and moving into EVs. First off, give me just the global view from your perspective of the disruption in the industry in the timeline of 100 years.
Well, it's, you know, it's like everything else in our world. It's all happening faster and faster and faster. And so
faster than you thought?
Yeah, because what's happening is the world is actually adopting EVs faster than we are. So if you look at China, China has just blown by everybody in terms of EV, not just sales, but in terms of technology, affordability, the supply base, all of that. Then you look at Europe. Europe has adopted EVs much faster than we have. And so, yeah, that's all happened really, really fast, in kind of a blink of an eye in terms of the way the auto industry operates. So it's happening quickly. Here, it's happening quickly, but not as quickly as it is in the rest of the world.
I feel like that back in 2011, you were kind of raising the flag saying, the shift is coming, change is coming, and people were like, no, hang on, you just wait a little bit, maybe that's not going to happen. And now that we're catching at this place, how do you think then we have come behind from all of that? What is it about our philosophy then in the U.S. that is different than those different parts of the world?
Well, first of all, you know, gasoline is cheaper here than in the rest of the world. So that's one reality. You know, and we have lots of oil in this country, whether we choose to explore it or not is another question. And I think the other thing, though, is in many ways we have moved really quickly. I mean, you think about ride hailing and ride sharing, that's all happened very quickly. Certainly electrification is happening and is by historical standards very quickly. I do think, though, I never thought I would see the day where our products have gotten politicized. But there is this notion now that if you are red, you're for internal combustion. If you're blue, you're for EVs. In our wildest dreams, we never thought we would see our products somehow be politicized. But like everything else in this country now, things, even our products are getting politicized. And so that will change the rate of adoption also.
Is that disappointing to you? I mean...
Well, I don't know. It was surprising. I don't know if it's disappointing, but it was surprising because, one thing Americans could always agree on was that they loved their vehicles, right? Now, they got to the point where if they had big traffic jams, they loved their vehicle and hated everybody else's. But they still loved their vehicles. And I think, now, though, there is this sort of undercurrent. And we live at a time, which I never thought I would see, where people are angry about everything. They just are. And you don't have to look very far to get offended by something or somebody. And so, and I think that as a result, I see it in our own interactions with whether it's policymakers or customers or people who want to comment on our sites. The level of politeness and discourse has really changed. And I don't think it's a good thing. And as Fareed just said, look, you strip away everything, this is still the greatest country on earth, and it just is. And, some of these things that people are so angry about are really first world problems. And yet, that doesn't change it, they are.
Let's talk about moving into EVs, and there are people that are driving them now who love them very much. But to move to that point where we are going to be fully electric, and taking a look at the price, infrastructure, and people are not quite sure.
Yeah, and they're not. And the great thing about us is we've sort of positioned our company that we can go whichever way it breaks. So we have an amazing collection of internal combustion products that I'm very proud of, whether it's Bronco or Bronco Sport or F-150 or Explorer. And you can go down the list, Mustang. Those are great internal combustion vehicles. They're going to be around a long time. If adoption happens more quickly, we're going fast down that road too. So, I believe that optionality for us is the way to go because one size doesn't fit all. Some people, really do want EVs. Other people are saying, over my dead body, I'll never drive one of those things. That's fine. Nobody's forcing anybody into anything. And yet we are placing our bets that the EV future will come. And so... But it's, as I say, it won't be a smooth, easy one. But it was interesting when we introduced the F-150 Lightning. That really opened my eyes because the reaction to that vehicle, people were blown away because they realized this wasn't just an F-150 that we threw a battery in. In many ways, this was a much more competent vehicle. You had all that extra room in front. You could use the vehicle to power your work site. It was a generator. In fact, you could use it to power your home if you lost power at home, things that your internal combustion vehicle couldn't do. And when people saw what the added efficacy of that was, it really opened a lot of people's eyes. Well, wait, maybe this electric thing might work.
But you also did grab brands, though, that had fierce loyalty. And you were able to, and then when you put a Mustang out there, you weren't too pleased about that at first, right?
No, I was the last one to say yes to that inside Ford because to me, a Mustang had to be a V8 with a stick, and the idea
and a top down.
Yeah, and the top down, and the idea of actually having an EV that made no noise at all. Are you kidding? But until I drove it, and then I drove it, I thought, oh my God, this is actually amazing.
They kept coming back to you, though.
They
right?
did, but they didn't have a drivable prototype, so I was unmoved. But But when they finally got one, I thought, wow, this thing's a blast. It snaps your head back. Within the speed limit,
I
shouldn't be talking about this.
But speeds, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, it drives my family crazy because I always say, well, I've never gotten a speeding ticket. And then the question is, well, how many times have you been pulled over? Well, the good news is most of the police are car nuts. So
So wait a minute. So this is you talking your way out of a ticket?
I don't have to say anything. They like the cars I'm in.
Please tell me they come up and they go, license registered. Mr. Ford, please go on your way.
No, they ask me a million questions about the vehicle. And like everybody else, why didn't you do this? Why did you do this? So it's fun.
So now that we've kind of really established where everything is headed and that it's happening a lot faster, and it takes a lot of different kind of coordination within a company to be able to change and to pivot. Talk about some of those changes, even within the last 2 years at Ford.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're basically becoming a software company. Well, we'll always be a hardware company, but we're rapidly becoming a software company as well, and that's a big change. It's a big change in a lot of ways, not just acquiring software talent, but the way you manage software talent is very different than the way you manage hardware talent. And so, you know, we're in a very, we're learning fast and we're moving fast. So, and we've divided the company into 3 different divisions. We have our EV company, we have our internal combustion company, and we have Ford Pro, which is our commercial company, which is actually a combination of both, but it serves our commercial customers. And yeah, I mean, we're managing the company very differently than we did a few years ago. And, you know, we're probably making some mistakes. I'm sure we are. And we'll probably look back and have to fine-tune some of it. But so far, it's going really, really well. And I think for us, sort of the secret weapon is the Pro business. So we do business vehicles really well. In fact, we're #1 in the world. But they have different requirements than a retail buyer does. So, I mean, they want to have their vehicle have 24-hour uptime if they can. They can't wait to get service for, you know, a 10-day service appointment. They have to have it serviced right now. They need loaner vehicles. They need all those kinds of things to keep their business moving. And so they need different kinds of software, and so that they can control their fleet. They can know their exact fleet fuel economy, all these kinds of things that we're now providing to them that a retail buyer more or less doesn't really care about. So, and it's going to be a huge profit driver for our company. And the customer loyalty to that is really, really high. But that's a new way we're managing too.
So when you're talking about your hardware company, but you're also a software company, that means you're gathering a lot of different kind of talent as well. And when you're doing the expansion and looking at expanding with EVs, and specifically, let's go ahead and take a look at Michigan and finding the talent that's here and the deliberate placemaking and deliberate decision about when you grow and when you're picking a plant and where you want to be. What are some of the considerations that I think Michigan needed to take into consideration to be able to have more of Ford here?
Well, Michigan's always going to have Ford here as long as I'm alive. You know, I love this state. I I can't imagine not investing in Michigan. But you know, and one of the and we've invested billions over the last few years in Michigan, and we'll continue to do so. And one of the great things we have here are our universities. Our universities in Michigan are fantastic. And there's a lot of talent coming out of those universities. But the problem was, in the past, a lot of those graduates would move to Chicago, or we lost them. But we now can offer those kinds of jobs, software and hardware, but particularly working on future problems that young people find really compelling. So we're doing a lot of hiring in Michigan, and as I say, our pipeline here is really good. The problem was in the past we'd lose them, and then it's hard to get them back. I remember Rick Snyder had an initiative to go around to different cities around the country trying to get Michigan alumni to get interested in reinvesting in Michigan, and actually in some cases getting them to move home. But that's a lot tougher proposition than not losing them in the first place. And we don't have to lose them. So, Michigan is, we'll always have issues. I mean, that's for sure. And every state always will. And, when we made our battery plant decision, we went first to Kentucky and Tennessee because Michigan wasn't ready. But I give the governor and her team a ton of credit because they quickly said, okay, what's it going to take for us?
I was just going to say, that must have been a tough conversation.
Well, not really. Not really, because it wasn't even close. And she was intensely interested in how do we fix this? And how is Michigan in the running for the next go-round and the go-round after that? How do we position Michigan for the future?
So what were some of the things that we did not have at that time?
One of the things we didn't have was, so what Tennessee and Kentucky did have, which was really interesting. I'll just talk about Tennessee, but Kentucky was the same way. Tennessee had a bunch of parcels already prepared for any size business that would walk in there. So, for instance, if you were a 10-person business and you wanted to relocate, they could show you, a number of sites ready to go. If you were 100, different sites, and all the way up. And then they had 2 mega sites, of which we ended up taking 1, that they were holding for the right company. And they turned down a number of people, but those mega sites were not just land acquisitions. They had the on-off ramps ready to go from the freeways. They had the railheads ready to go. I mean, it was really as close to turnkey as you could get. Well, we hadn't had that kind of forethought in Michigan to start banking those kind of opportunities. And so, so that's one of the things I said to the governor is, you don't have any place for us to go. I mean, even if we wanted to come here, there was no place to go that had, and the permitting process. Kentucky and Tennessee had really streamlined the permitting process. Well, she moved heaven and earth to do that for us as well. So I give Quentin Messer and Governor Whitmer a ton of credit for reacting very quickly when they realized that Michigan needed to get its act together, and they did.
In talking about that placement in Marshall, especially now that you're going through this process, and Michigan Central, I know that Josh is going to be coming up right after us just to speak about that so people can get a better idea of the campus. But the importance of being in an area and having the residents of the area understand what is actually going to be happening there, how important is that to you, and what steps do you need to take as a company to make sure that people are on board?
Well, look, I mean, one of our core values as a company is we take care of the communities in which we operate, and we've always done that. And that's true of wherever we have plants. It's true of Dearborn, Michigan. It'll be certainly true in Detroit when we're fully operational there. We don't just build something or occupy a building and then call it a day. We engage in the community and really try and make people's lives better. I mean, one of the things I've always believed is a company shouldn't exist unless it's making people's lives better. And you have to always ask yourself that question, are we doing that? And if not, we need to change something. So I think that, wherever we build, whether it's in Tennessee or Kentucky or Marshall, Michigan, the residents hopefully will understand that we are there to not just build batteries or vehicles, but to build communities and build, opportunity for people. And we're there for the long run, and we're going to be there through our philanthropic arm. We'll be there through our community engagement. And one of the things we did, you mentioned Michigan Central. We spent a lot of time, and Josh, I'm sure we'll talk about this, and Mary Culler, who's here today, really spearheaded this, was spending a lot of time both in Southwest Detroit and in Corktown, talking to residents and saying, what do you want us to do, and what don't you want us to do, and how will this not be a corporate takeover of your neighborhood, but how can we make your life better by us being here? And we did a lot of listening, and we have to do that in Marshall. We have to do a lot of listening and then addressing the concerns they have, and maybe we haven't done a good enough job of that. So, it's interesting because, Ford's been around 120 years, and I think the communities that we've operated in for the last X number of years understand that. But the new communities, we haven't built a lot of new stuff in years. All of a sudden, we're building a lot of new stuff, and we're building them in new places. And, I think it's unreasonable for us to expect them to think, oh yeah, Ford will be great neighbor, because they don't know us. I mean, if they know of us, they think favorably in terms of the way we deal with the community. But it's really, the onus is on us to convince them that we're going to be great for them.
Yeah, you just had the book depository open up, which is going to be an incubator for a lot of small businesses there. To see this coming so close now in the entire campus, and an idea that, people were a little like, maybe this is not the greatest idea, Bill.
Yeah, no, I got a lot of that. But you know what? We're in a war for talent in Michigan. And we're in a war for talent at Ford. And if you're going to attract the best and the brightest, you've got to give them exceptional things. And one thing people don't want to do is go work in some nondescript, suburban building where the walls are gray and everything looks the same, and and it's just dreary.
Yes.
And so the opportunity to work at the Book Depository building or Michigan Central Station really provides that. And at the Book Depository building, the energy there is amazing. You've got 31 companies now, I think, Josh, is something like that. And they've raised over $500 million in venture capital, and we made it open. So we didn't want this to be a Ford thing. So some of the companies are working with Ford, some of them are working with Stellantis, some are working with GM, some are working with Tier 1 suppliers. Some aren't doing any of that. But they're working with each other, and they're learning from each other. And one of the things I think that Mayor Duggan and I haven't had the conversation yet, but I've been thinking about a lot, and Mike, we'll talk about this offline. No, the next step is these companies have to have a place to grow too. So they're all young companies now. Many of them are not from Michigan. In fact, most of them aren't. And they love being in Detroit, and they love being in the Book Depository. But if they're successful, they'll outgrow it, and then they have to go somewhere. And I think that's something that we should think about as a city and as a region. How do we keep those companies here in Detroit because they love it, and we should be able to keep them here. And so and I've been thinking about that a lot because right now it's great. They're all young, they're all fired up, but some won't make it, and they'll be replaced by new startups. But some will make it, but we want to keep them here.
Yeah, we've talked an awful lot up here on Mackinac this week about growing population here in the state of Michigan and what that's going to take, and it's not going to be just one thing or five things, and it's not going to be anything that we're going to be able to do in 2 years. It's got to be concerted and more of a long-term effort, not something that ends with terms. But what would your thoughts be on that?
Well, look, one of the things, the great attractions, we have so many. First of all, we've got all the fresh water in Michigan where you look at any place west of the Mississippi and they're dying for water. And by the way, we have to make sure we're doing a great job protecting our Great Lakes because I don't want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a stretch. They've already drained the Colorado River to say, well, it'd be great. The Great Lakes have a lot of water. We can just tap into that. I mean, hell no. Mm-hmm. But that's a great attraction long term. Our fresh water. Our workforce here is terrific. And we have, as I just said a minute ago, great universities. We kind of have all the ingredients to be. We don't have natural disasters really. I mean, yeah, we have a couple. We have some tornadoes every now and then, but relative to the rest of the country, we don't. We've got it all here. We really do. And our only opposition is ourselves. And we just got to get our act together and build a long-term future here. And I think we're doing that. I mean, when I look at what's happened to Detroit in the last 10 years and the reputation of the city, I mean, you all talk about this all the time. All of us live this. I mean, 10 years ago, if you tried to hire somebody in the East Coast or West Coast and you said, please come to Detroit, I mean, forget it. And we'd bring in prospective employees and we'd show them, talk about how great the suburbs were, how great the school systems were, how great northern Michigan was. And if you took them to Detroit, you'd take them to a ball game and then get out of there. So different now. It was really interesting. There's a coffee shop that's attached to a barber shop in Corktown, and I was talking to the barber, and I said to him, he had 10 chairs, and I said, can you fill all these chairs? He said, oh, yeah. He said, in fact, I've got resumes, that I don't know what to do with. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, anybody from San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Denver. He said they can't make a living on a barber's wage, and they hear the buzz around Detroit now is, really great, and they can make a living, and so I could have whoever I want. I mean, but thanks to our mayor who's just done an amazing job. Yes. So we have everything here to be successful. We do, and I'm very bullish on our future. And it's really important. The one thing I forgot to mention is we know how to make things in Michigan. And the world software is becoming important, but you still have to make things that software goes in. And you still have to integrate that software into what you make. And I believe we can, and we saw during COVID, we switched over from making cars to PPE equipment. Guess what? If we were making all our vehicles in, some other country, we couldn't do that. We were the arsenal of democracy during World War II. We switched over. And also the multiplier effect on a manufacturing job is real. And that's why so many countries and frankly, so many states, are really want Ford and I'm sure GM and Stellantis and everybody else to go there because it's not just the direct jobs you create, it's all the indirect jobs as well.
How does family legacy weigh on you? Your daughter is on the board and walking through this pivotal time in the industry and at the company.
Well, first of all, I love having my daughter on the board, even though she tells me everything I'm doing is wrong. But
that's what kids are for.
Yeah, exactly. She did that from the day she was born. So at least she's consistent. No, it's been really fun. I love it. And as I said at the beginning, I really feel like I'm working for her and her kids and my, and not just her, but all my kids and all the grandkids maybe yet to come. I don't know, maybe. But and so it does make me take a longer view of things and maybe not get quite so worried about some of the short-term hiccups and just to say, are we generally on the right path? Are we making the right investments? And are we understanding what this next generation wants? I think too often our industry has been an echo chamber, and we've been a very insular industry, and in some ways in an insular state for too long. That's all changing now. It's changing because the need for software, it's changing because technology is changing rapidly, and we have to be abreast of it all. And I think that's really good because, as I say, the one negative I think that Michigan had and our industry had is, for many, many years, we were kind of a one-horse town. And everybody was somehow attached to the auto industry. So everybody would tell everybody how great everything was. Well, guess what? You drive out to California, good luck finding an American car, right? But you come back to Detroit, and all you saw were American cars on the road, and you could convince yourself that everything was fine. So I've always tried to take a longer view of where the world is headed and where Ford should be placing its bets, because I think that is part of the family legacy. Is I really want this company to not just survive but thrive for another 100 years.
All right, so we only have about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to do something that I never do. I always keep it serious, but I'm going to ask you 5 quick, totally frivolous questions that I want the answers to.
Be careful, you might not like the answers.
No, I'm going to love every answer. All right.
Okay.
Favorite car for a road trip? Make, model, year.
Mustang V8 stick shift convertible down on the Pacific Coast Highway in California.
Color.
Color, it doesn't matter as long as the sound's up, cranked up.
Soundtrack?
Well, I'm a one-hit wonder guy, so nobody likes my songs.
Okay.
So, I'm pretty much, I'll date myself, I'm pretty much a 70s, kind of.
Serious 70s on 7?
Got it.
All right, that'll be good. Things that keep you up at night?
Oh, boy. Well, other than 4 children, which I think would keep any parent up at night. No, it's just, particularly during the dark days of the financial crisis when, GM and Chrysler went bankrupt and we were just hanging on, I would stare at the ceiling every night saying, is this all going to go down on my watch? Am I going to be the one after 100 years that ruined the family company? And I worry about that every night. I do. I mean, I like where we are. We're very profitable. Things are going well, but there's no shortage of things to worry about, and I suppose there never will be.
Yeah. All right, best place in Michigan?
Oh, any place, any place in a trout stream. And thankfully, we've got lots of good ones.
Oh, nice. All right, what brings you joy right now?
Well, other than the obvious answers of my kids and my grandkids, I love to play hockey. I'm 66, and I still...
Wait, do they check you into the boards because you're Bill Ford, or do they stay away from you because you're Bill Ford?
Depends how pissed off they are that day. Sometimes I get slashed just for fun. Other times I don't. But no, I really love it. And actually, one of the things I really love is I play in the Ford Hockey League, and it allows me to get to know people that I wouldn't know otherwise in my job. And of course, the trash talking is pretty severe, and a lot of it's directed at me. So,
All right. Well, fill in the blank.
Yeah. So in fact, one of the guys said the other night, he said, "If I slash you, are you going to choke on the silver spoon?"
You're like, check your paycheck next week.
Exactly.
All right, last thing for you. In 5 years, I hope, fill in the blank.
Well, I hope I'm still doing this because I love it. And I love what I do. I love the company. And I love the people in the company. To me, it's not the vehicles or the plants or any of the machinery. It's the people. And it will always be the people. And any company is only as good as its people. So if we can attract the best and the brightest, and then we can keep them happy and motivated, then we'll have a great company. And I love that, and I love spending time with our employees, and that's the part that I enjoy most. So yeah, in 5 years, I hope I'm still doing that.
All right, we can't wait to see what's next. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Ford Jr.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun.
This Mackinac Moment is sponsored by Comcast Business. Please welcome Chief Executive Officer of Michigan Central, Josh Syrifman.
Good afternoon, Michigan. Thank you. Tough act to follow, but here we are. And there we are. So, for the last 2 days, and you'll forgive me, this is my first Mackinac Policy Conference, and I'm pretty sure it's been 2 weeks, not 2 days. We've all been talking about the power of collaboration, the power of diverse perspectives. Michigan Central is literally the embodiment of the power of and. As Bill described, Bill and his colleagues and Mary and others saw that the pace of change in technology, the challenges facing the world, the challenges facing Detroit, facing Michigan, required a different response. Michigan Central is that response. It's actually a social enterprise committed to building solutions and skills at the intersection of mobility and society. What the hell does that mean, you say? Well, so a social enterprise, meaning we are a community development enterprise, an economic development enterprise. Our mission is to build the talent pipeline, to grow the economy. And our business mandate is not that of a typical real estate endeavor, but in fact, to become our own self-sustaining entity so that we can keep doing and investing in the work that we do. Building solutions and skills, because our focus is on new mobility solutions and how to accelerate their adoption into the real world. And skills, because the work we're doing gives us insights into the skills needed for the work of the future. And at the intersection of mobility and society, because physical mobility is inseparable from social mobility and economic mobility. How are we going to do this? And as Bill described, we're already doing it. First and foremost, through, in fact, the power of bound, by creating a big tent, an open platform for companies of all scales, for universities, for organizations, civic organizations, community organizations, philanthropies, for everybody to participate. And we believe that what will come out of that is a powerful and game-changing and market-leading ecosystem that will grow well beyond the boundaries of just Michigan Central. Through the provision of innovation infrastructure, real assets that facilitate and invite testing of new ideas also in the real world. It's not just stuff that's in some lab or an R&D space. It's in fact out there, like the inductive charging in pavement with Electrion. These are tools that companies and others can use to test what they need to do. Through collaboration, Bill mentioned the incredible support from Mayor Duggan, from Governor Whitmer, the city and the state, but it's not just a typical public-private partnership. It's a working collaboration, day to day. The teams from both the city and the state are as much a part of the work at Michigan Central as our own team. And it exceeds just government. It's philanthropy, it's civic organizations, it's community organizations. That collaboration is the ethos of Michigan Central. And through new policy tools, recently passed by the Detroit City Council, the City of Detroit created something called the Transportation Innovation Zone. It's actually an incredibly powerful signal to companies that Detroit is open for new business. Super happy that the first permit was issued. It's amazing, yes. So this is no small feat. And that first permit is a combination of two robotics companies, one from Detroit, one from the UK. And they're working with a consortium of community-based organizations in Corktown and Southwest to develop a robotic crossing guard to make safer intersections. Small steps, but incredibly powerful. And through the engagement and participation of the community, Bill mentioned the work that Mary and Carolina and others have done in engaging with our neighbors around Michigan Central. But it's deeper than just that. It's not just about how do we be good neighbors, but it's about actual participation and inclusion in the process. Innovation isn't just technical R&D. Everybody participates in the innovation at Michigan Central. And we're well on our way. And one of the things that I love, and Bill mentioned this too, is that there's a certain poetry that we're not doing this in shiny new purpose-built buildings. There was a lot of talk at the conference over the last couple days about the importance of place. We're doing this in iconic structures that have been incredible witnesses to history, both the triumph and the civic grandeur, and also the trials and tribulations of Detroit and so many other cities. The first building we opened, the Book Depository Building, built in 1936 to accommodate bulk mail coming from the train station, then a storage supply for books and supplies for Detroit school children, and then empty and abandoned for 35 years and decaying, now ready for its next life. And if you haven't been in there, you have to come see it. It's super powerful. And together with our partners at New Lab, a company we attracted to come from New York, their only expansion, having been sought after by literally over 100 cities, amazing specialists in cultivating the relationship between emerging technology and emerging companies. Together with New Lab, as Bill mentioned, we just opened in April, we already have almost 40 companies now at this point, and they're engaged in all kinds of extraordinary work. About half are Detroit founders or Michigan founders, and half are coming from around the country and around the world. And the work is focusing on electrification, on alternative energy sources, on advanced aerial mobility, on intersectional mobility, where new mobility tools can take on issues like healthcare access, food equity. Companies like Grounded in the upper left corner, making the only customized electric RV product in the market, who literally turned around on the way to Austin to set up shop at Michigan Central. Companies like WheelMe, a Norwegian company who makes an autonomous wheel with all kinds of applications, that literally contacted me cold on LinkedIn saying, we're ready to enter the North American market, and Michigan Central is the perfect place for us. And companies like Pluck, a Detroit-based company focused on produce logistics, but you did not know produce logistics was a field, but where they're developing the tech that can lower the cost to deliver literally the produce from urban farms in Detroit to local communities. Interestingly, together, the companies already at Michigan Central represent $500 million in venture investment, shockingly close to 40% of the total amount of venture activity that actually happened in the state of Michigan in 2021, critical as we all build the venture community here in Michigan to keep those companies here as they grow and scale. We've become a center for convening, based with Detroit-based, regional, statewide, and national and global events, seeing us as a neutral ground to take on hard issues. And I mentioned our skills work before. Incredibly important that all of the work that we do at Michigan Central would be for naught if we did not recognize that we have to focus on the growing gaps in who's participating in the growth economy. Detroit Future City and the Brookings Institute did an incredible report that really painted a stark picture of the disparity in who's getting jobs in the growth economy. Michigan Central takes this very seriously. And the focus of our skills work is, in fact, on taking advantage of the opportunity we have by having all this groundbreaking work happening at Michigan Central to develop skills training that we can do on-site, but then also scale through partnerships and curriculum, and hopefully start to move the needle. We're already working, for example, with our partners Google, their Code Next program, first Code Next program in the Midwest. This spring, they have 50 students. In the fall, it'll be 100 students. The outcome's already incredibly energizing. It's amazing. One student has designed a robotics tool that uses Braille to facilitate visually impaired participation in meetings. Another student has started a web design business with a number of customers in her neighborhood. Another one is starting at Columbia University in the fall and has committed at this point to come back after. But it's really, it's material steps towards taking on these incredibly important issues. As Bill talked about, we think what we do at Michigan Central can scale. It can scale throughout Detroit, throughout the region, throughout the state. We're already seeing where companies located at Michigan Central need manufacturing facilities and find them elsewhere in the region. As Bill mentioned, we have to address this, though, to make sure we can accommodate all range of growth. But we're also starting to see networks start to form across geography. And our opportunity to scale this even further will increase dramatically around this time next year when we formally open the train station as part of the venue for all of the work that we are doing. So we're incredibly grateful to all of our partners, to the city, to the state, to our philanthropic, our civic, our corporate, our community, our neighbor partners, and we're extremely excited to continue to build Michigan Central with all of you. So thank you.
You're watching live coverage of the Mackinac Policy Conference here on Detroit Public Television. When you think about what someone needs to reach their highest potential, feeling secure in where you live, having a place to live is top on that list. Two folks thinking a lot about that are Ryan Hertz, CEO of Lighthouse, and Kelly Dobler, Chief Advancement Officer at Samaritas. Thanks for being here, both of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Ryan, my guess is most of us who are able to attend the conference take for granted, right, the luxury of having a place to live. But housing security is a huge impediment if we're trying to level set the field, have people, live up to this potential that we're all talking about in workforce training. Tell me about your work.
Sure. So at Lighthouse, we provide a whole range of services oriented around poverty alleviation. We focus a lot on housing because for many households, their rent check is their biggest expense every month, and it really makes a big difference in their ability to sustain the whole rest of their household situation. And so our focus is certainly on creating affordable housing, whether affordable rental or home ownership opportunities to lower income people in our community. But the issue itself is really a problem with the whole ecosystem. So we tend to think of affordable housing and housing security as something that predominantly impacts lower income people. When we bring higher income jobs into an economy, we're naturally bringing low to mid income workers into that community to support those additional folks. And with that comes the housing problem to support the whole economy. So really, affordable housing should be thought of as an economic development tool, but frequently, because the tools that we have for it are named things like the low-income housing tax credit, there's a lot of stigma around it. But in reality, what I'm here to hopefully advocate for is we need to start thinking about housing the way we think about agriculture. Like if the market isn't meeting the need, we need to do something to meet the market need across the board. We can't just think of it as something that just serves people specifically who have an acute poverty situation.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point, Ryan, too, if I may, Zoe, right?
Please, Kelly.
Just because you'd mentioned the stigma around affordable housing, and you have that idea of who qualifies for affordable housing. And I think there's a lot of work to be done as a community to understand who that actually is and what incomes qualify for affordable housing and expand that conversation to beyond just areas of concentrated poverty. And you hear that, and it's not the same. And when we talk about affordable housing options and different housing products that really span a full continuum so people can be transitional and grow into single home ownership on that path to self-sufficiency. And to your point, housing is fundamental to everything, and creating that safety and security so they can arrive and thrive is huge.
In a sense, though, I think it's important to note there really is no such thing as self-sufficiency, right? It's invisible to us, but our food is subsidized. All of our food, right? Whatever our income is subsidized, right? And so I think it's important for folks to realize this is a supply-demand issue that really can be impacted by just more units on the market. It doesn't have to be, specifically affordable units in order to help us really resolve what's an impending and continuing crisis between increase in construction costs and all kinds of challenges in the economy. I think we're going to have to start thinking really differently about how we make the housing happen that our communities need to thrive.
So Kelly's thinking differently. I mean, who is doing that work? You're with Samaritas. I know this is something you're thinking a lot about. Are the right folks thinking and then actually doing it outside of this conference and the conversations about it?
I will tell you, I've been very encouraged with conversations I've heard on the island this week. Ryan, I know we were talking a lot about how energized we were and the things that will come off of this island when we get back. I think it's really obvious that we have to work together to solve these type of issues. And make affordable housing something that is widespread. The whole theme of this conference is, right, the power of and I think that is huge in this conversation here. At Samaritas, we serve a wide variety of different audiences, and housing is fundamental to all of those, whether it's children in the child welfare system, whether it's kids aging out of care, or if it's refugees. We need to bring in government and business and philanthropy with the power of and to solve these issues together, because it really is base to everything else.
Yeah. We need more tools than just tax credits to address the affordable rental gap. I
Absolutely.
think, the tools that we have are really helpful, but they're very, very finite, very competitive. There's parts of our state that it's extremely difficult to compete and draw those resources in, who have very significant housing challenges. And I think we need to get more creative and imaginative about how we're going to address this. I was very encouraged that at the conference there was a session dedicated to connecting what employers can do to address this issue, because I think we've lived for a long time thinking about housing as a sort of isolated issue on an island on its own. And oftentimes the same people who you might think would oppose affordable housing have incentive to support it if the conversation is about the needs for their business. And so I was just encouraged to see that the conversations come that far, that one of the first sessions was on that topic.
Kelly, we've just got about 30 seconds, but I mean, are you feeling encouraged? And then quickly, what are the next steps we need to see as everybody travels back 75?
Really encouraged. We have to commit to keeping these conversations going and collaborate when we can. We have to lessen restrictions on different housing opportunities for different services or different populations that it serves. It's the only way we're going to grow. And combining some of those themes on the island this week, growing Michigan's population, housing is an excellent way to do that. It's a hindrance to not have that right now. We build it, they will come. And you combine it with the social services and other types of things that we are talking about here that will just create that population growth across the board, whether it's workforce, whether it's refugees, whether it's kids in our future for tomorrow.
Exactly.
Kelly, Ryan, thank you for your work. Thanks for
Thank
the
you.
time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Zoe.
Okay. And we're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
Monday night is Career Night on the Michigan Learning Channel. Join us every week as we explore different career paths and emerging industries, and discover how people all over the country are adapting to new work environments. Plus, learn about people throughout history who have had interesting jobs. Career Night on the Michigan Learning Channel, every Monday at 8 p.m. Learn more at mifutureofwork.org. Join One Detroit for a special episode covering the 2023 Mackinac Policy Conference. From keynote speeches to panel discussions, we'll bring you the highlights of the conference with exclusive insights from the One Detroit team. Stay tuned for interviews with top leaders and experts as we break down some of Michigan's most pressing issues. Watch the One Detroit Mackinac Policy Conference special. Check your local listings.
When it comes to staying informed, I want the best information about what's going on in Detroit and around the country. That's why I love Detroit Public TV. It's so easy to find valuable, trusted journalism that keeps me up to date about the issues that matter. Whether I'm on my laptop, phone, or smart TV, I know it's available right at my fingertips. And as a Passport member, I get access to even more exclusive content. And it's all on the free PBS app and at dptv.org. Faucets to Behr paint. Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support for this program is provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.
It was like snow and rain coming in because there's nothing I could do about it, so I just worked it out. I just had my bucket there, put some towels down. That's it. And just do what I do to make it work.
That's lifelong Detroiter Sam Ladine talking about a gaping hole that was in the roof of her 100-year-old home on the city's northeast side.
Dripping and dripping and dripping, and one day it just fell in. I had planned to get it patched, but I never could come up with the $500 this man was going to patch it for me.
Ms. Dean is a senior, disabled, and qualifies for a property tax exemption for low-income residents, which made her a prime candidate for the city's Renew Detroit home repair program.
And we're back here at the Grand Hotel at the Mackinac Policy Conference. I am joined by Dave Egner, President and CEO of the Wilson Foundation. Great to have you here with us.
Zoe, it's great to be here.
Aw, thanks. So you are someone that not only thinks so much about the future of Detroit, but you have a power, this ability to actually make some impact in the future of Detroit as well, right? What has this week's conversation about retaining, attracting talent, not just in the city, but in the state, meant to you in your work?
Oh, gosh. Well, the state's on a very interesting trajectory. If this study that was just done by Citizens Research Council and Alterum, if we do nothing, by 2050, our population of children-age kids, 0 to 17, will drop 6%. Our college-age kids will drop 6%. Our prime working population will go up 2%, and our number of retirees 65 and older will go up 30%. So we've got to get talent into the state and into jobs that make sense. And if for nothing else, self-interest, I will be in the 65-plus category, and I want help.
We were talking to Eric Lufer about the report yesterday. And like you said, a lot of the conversation is about population this week, but it's also about those demographics.
Right.
So what are we going to do, particularly in the city of Detroit, to get everyone to want to stay, but also to get that next generation in the city and put in roots?
I think first you got to look at what's been done. So Nicole Sherrod-Freeman did a marvelous job in running the jobs department. The lowest unemployment in the history of the city, or in the last 50 years of the city, is in place now because of the great work she did. There's so much more to do, and there's so many barriers to cross. So you can be overwhelmed by the barriers, so let's start with the positives. We're sitting with a lot of open jobs that we know what we have to do to train people to get into those jobs. So the community college system across the region is starting to work on that. The Wilson Foundation made a $20 million grant to 7 community colleges. Balmer made a $10 million grant to start to reverse engineer this job issue, preparing people for those jobs, how to create student success, how to work specifically in the mobility industry in that space. So that's going to be interesting to watch. And then if you shift to the harder things, I think Dr. Vidi's getting a handle on public schools. That's a tough job. And we've got to think very differently about how kids come in prepared for school, the work we're doing, but we seem to be making some good progress. It's going to be a decade to 2-decade-long process of turn. We're out of time. But the pressure the anticipation, I think, will drive outputs in a way they didn't before.
Well, and that's my next question. We spoke with Superintendent Vitti yesterday about this same issue because we're all here, it feels like, again, talking about these issues. It feels to me that folks are starting to get it, right? That we're not just talking, but there's actually maybe some action for the next 362 days of the year until the next conference. Are you feeling that way?
Yeah, that's my greatest hope. The panel on workforce that I ran, it's the first time I've run panels on that topic for 20 years up here. It's the first time I really felt there was a common understanding of the problem and a common group and alignment around issues. So I think we've got more hope than we've had before. We've got to be impatient to get to outputs, but patient with people as we come together to trust each other. I think that's the key.
So the conference chair, Matt Elliott, one of the things that he's talking about is not just getting it, right? But then doing it, but then also having a decision about what do the measurables look like, right? Like what does success, that definition look like? I'm curious, just from your standpoint, what would success look like and how do we measure it?
Oh gosh, depends on the topic, right? There's so many in this space, but I'll come back to the community colleges. They have been measured on this kind of 6-year graduation rate. It's a good measurement, a good start. What if we could measure the placement rate of every kid that came through community college, whether they got the certificate or degree or not, and their retention rate afterwards in jobs? We're working to get that data with the state for the first time in history. That will drive a different set of outputs. And if you look at the K-12 space, it's going to be movement toward milestones. I mean, we have to put a set of metrics down across this entire system. But that can be done. We know what they are. We've seen the best models in the country. We're going to replicate them.
I know I hate to make you do this. We got about 30 seconds left before we go into the theater, but I'm curious, what would you like to see in Detroit in 10 years when we're talking about workforce and we're talking about population?
I would like to get back to a point to where Detroit's growing as a city, that the housing and the public space has become so attractive, people want to be there, and there's already jobs, and there's already job shortages, and that talent base from the very lowest level of talent to the very highest level of talent want to live and stay in Detroit.
Dave, I appreciate the time.
Always glad to be a lead-in for the governor.
We're going to go to the theater now and hear from Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
We're doing more than ever to achieve it.
Distinguished guests, please take your seats. This session will begin momentarily. This next session is sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan and will feature a live Twitter feed. To join the conversation, share your thoughts on Twitter and use the hashtag MPC23. Please welcome the Governor of the State of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
Well, thank you all. It's so good to be back, right? Has this been a phenomenal week or what on Mackinac Island? Of course, I want to thank Conference Chair Matt Elliott and CEO Sandy Barua and all of the Chamber leadership and staff. They worked so hard to put this together, and I want to thank them as well as all the hardworking women and men behind the scenes, all the staff here at the Grand. Please join me in showing our gratitude. So 2 years ago, I spoke about political division, our need to come together to solve problems. Last year, I focused on the year 2100 and how we must act now to set up future generations for success. And so today, I'm going to combine those concepts and focus on growing Michigan together. Earlier today, I signed an executive order establishing a council to do just that. And today, I'll dig into what the council will accomplish, and if you stick around, we're going to make a little more news today. So just a heads up, before we get started, we have included pieces from some of Michigan's youngest and most promising artists throughout this presentation. Please feel free to contact their agents directly about purchasing options. As we approach the second quarter of this century, Michigan must actively work to grow our state's population, to spur economic growth, to lead the future of key industries like mobility and chips, and clean energy and ensure an exceptional quality of life at a great cost of living to everyone who calls this great state home. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what we have been up to. We've been pretty busy downstate. I see the Senate Majority Leader Winnie Brink sitting here. I think Speaker Tate is with us somewhere, maybe on the porch, but we have been working really hard and working together in a collaborative way. We made some promises last year, and we are keeping them. We quintupled the working families tax credit, putting hundreds of dollars back in people's pockets and lifting, that's good. And as you can see, we've lifted nearly 26,000 families out of working poverty. And I want to thank the Chamber, because this was something your advocacy made a difference on, and we got the shared priority done. We expanded advanced manufacturing and brought supply chains home. We made record investments in housing and community development. We ushered in robust small business growth. And we expanded Going Pro to help businesses upskill their workforce and continued working to find new ways to attract and grow talent here in Michigan. We grew our innovative bipartisan program, TriShare, to lower the cost of childcare and remove that barrier to employment. We made critical infrastructure upgrades at Selfridge Air National Guard Base. And I think it's so crucial that we continue our united effort to compete for more defense industry investments. And let's support our service members, like Major Jason Holm from Macomb County, whose call sign is Sherlock, and Major General Darren Werner, commander of TACOM, Detroit Arsenal, who is departing later this year. We want to thank you both for your service to our state. Okay, I don't remember it being this hot at this conference before, but it's great. I want to recognize Major General Paul Rogers. Last month, our Adjutant General and I traveled to visit our troops in Latvia. Latvia is Michigan's European partner, and I think a lot of people don't know that, but they are also one of the most crucial allies to Ukraine. And so it was a true honor to have traveled and shared some MREs with Michiganders on the front lines. You don't know how good you have it here at the Food at the Grand until you have MRE. And this year, I also signed some common sense gun safety prevention legislation. Yes. I said gun safety prevention. It's gun violence prevention. We want safety. But as your applause indicates, we know that this action is supported by a majority of people in our state. I'm so glad we got it done. We also expanded the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. It's the right thing to do, and it's just good economics. The majority of us know that bigotry is bad for business. And the same goes for repealing outdated abortion bans. Your future workforce. Your future workforce is watching. Our future residents and potential future residents, they are watching. And getting Michigan on the right side of history on both these fronts is going to be good for business. At their core, each one of these policies is about something we all need or care about. I mean, it's the power of and, right? But every one of these actions is focused on something that every one of us cares about, right? Safety, children, work, communities, home. All these priorities coexist. We reject false choices in our own lives every single day. We want to be good parents and love our jobs. We want our families to succeed and give back to our communities. We live the power of and every day. We strive for it. But too often, many think, whether they're in government or in the private sector, that they think of these decisions in a zero-sum way and get stymied by false choices. Environmental conservation or economic development. Quality of life or cost of living. Invest in the future or live in the now. I don't make choices like that. I don't have time for that, and I know you don't either. In Michigan, we can harness the power of and. We just look to our past as an example. In the turn of the 20th century, Michigan was home to 2.4 million people. 20 years later, our population grew 51% to nearly 3.7 million. In 1970, it was 8.9 million people, a 140% increase in 50 years. That's what we are capable of. At that same time, household wages went up, and the middle class grew, and businesses made record profits, and powered groundbreaking innovation. Dutch immigrants established Holland, Michigan. The great migration of Black Americans left legalized oppression in the South for Detroit and a fair shot at a good life. The Finns shared Sisu with the UP, and Middle Eastern immigrants brought their rich culture to Dearborn and, of course, beyond. Look, we may be America's high five, right? But these are working hands. Generations of families built this state with their grit and hustle. We all know Michiganders put the world on wheels, and we assembled the arsenal of democracy. We've done a heck of a lot more than that, too. Heck, Michigan's been on the cutting edge of furniture design and healthcare. We are the birthplace of canned baby food and cereal, techno music and traffic lights. Because of Michiganders' past, like our parents and grandparents and ancestors, we defined so much of the last century. By learning from their example, we can lead this one too. And that's why I am more optimistic than ever about our future. We are a state on the rise. We're leading the future of mobility and chips and clean energy. We will dominate battery manufacturing by 2030. We're building semiconductor components from Ann Arbor to Bay City to the Keweenaw Peninsula. And as you can see, MLive is passionate about chips too. We're winning international investments in cutting-edge industries like hydrogen. And we are reimagining historic buildings into cathedrals of innovation like Michigan Central. And of course, we're continuing to fix the damn roads. While some states tell women what to do with their bodies, Michigan is protecting the fundamental right to make your own decisions. While some states demonize the LGBTQ+ community, Michigan is expanding civil rights so everyone has freedom to be who they are. While some states wage war with Mickey Mouse or demean battery projects, we in Michigan will go anywhere and compete with anyone to bring jobs and businesses home, including going into states where their philosophy seems to be the power of or. In Michigan, we embrace the power of and together we will make Michigan a place where people want to build their lives, start a family, and pursue their entrepreneurial dream. When people move somewhere, it is the ultimate vote of confidence. It means they know they can build a bright future in that place. Our job is to make sure that the world knows what Michigan has to offer. Our goal is to grow Michigan, and to succeed, we've got to do it together. We're making progress, but we've got to do more. It is time for a growth strategy led by leaders and experts, focused on our collective goals rather than personal, political, or partisan agendas. Yesterday, we laid out Make It in Michigan, which is our plan to win more projects and invest in people and revitalize places. Growing our state and economy requires progress on all three of these fronts. This morning, I signed an executive order establishing the Growing Michigan Together Council. This new council, which is co-chaired by Ambassador John Ricolta Jr., a Republican, and Shirley Stancato, a Democrat, will bring leaders in industry, education, and government together to focus on growing Michigan's population in a smart, strategic way. That last part is key, Actually, before I say that, let's thank Ambassador Ricolta and Shirley Stancato for leaning in and doing this work. So the last part is key. We need strategic population growth so that we can grow our economy without ever sacrificing our quality of life or endangering our natural resources. And one of those resources is water. Now, Michigan is home to 21% of the world's fresh surface water, 80% of the fresh surface water in North America. In the decades ahead, the effects of climate change are going to accelerate, and Michigan will be a climate refuge. But our population goals cannot be cynically fueled by climigrants, right? These are people who migrate to Michigan because of climate change. It's got to be driven by our ability to address global challenges and what we have to offer. So let's talk a little bit about the Council's directives. First, jobs, talent, and people. The Council will identify a specific population goal for 2050. They will map out how to use all the different levers that we have: retention, recruitment, domestic migration, immigration, so that we can continue growing our economy and create upward mobility for everyone. They'll focus on how to build, attract, and retain a skilled workforce that can compete with other states and nations. We know talent drives growth, and we must create equitable paths to opportunity so Michiganders can get the good-paying jobs created by the cutting-edge companies we're competing to bring home. Next, infrastructure and places. We have made record investments in every kind of infrastructure, but we still have a lot of good work to do, especially if we have an increasing population. So the Council will develop long-term funding solutions for transportation and water infrastructure so we can increase capacity and keep costs low. And finally, education. We must improve student outcomes at every level, from preschool through post-secondary. The Council will develop policies and sustainable funding recommendations to improve education so that every child realizes their full potential. And it will propose how to measure our performance against other top states. The ultimate goal of any policy or plan, however, is its impact on people. We want to ensure everyone can build their future here in Michigan. Here's a few examples. A young family facing high child care and housing costs in another state should be able to move to one of our growing small towns or cities like Cassopolis and get a good-paying manufacturing job at the Hydro aluminum recycling facility there. A young woman who wants to live in a state where her fundamental rights are respected should be able to apply her engineering degree at one of our cutting-edge semiconductor or science facilities like KLA or Wacker in Ann Arbor. A couple of international students who met in one of our top-ranked academic programs can stay in Michigan, start a family, and apply their talents at one of the big three to help us lead the future of mobility and electrification. Blue collar, white collar, no collar, it doesn't matter. Everyone has a path to prosperity in the state of Michigan that we envision and we will work toward. The Council will report. Yeah, thank you. So the thing we all know about John Ricolta and Shirley Stancato is they don't suffer fools and they don't have time to dither. They are going to get to work, and in 6 months, with a cadre of additional experts and leaders, they will be presenting a report in December. And then we will act on as many of their recommendations as we can with a bipartisan support to grow Michigan together. In addition to this work, we need personnel embedded within state government, focused full time on the mission to grow this state. And that's why I'm excited to announce that Hillary Doe will be Michigan's first Chief Growth Officer. She's not just the first Chief Growth Officer in Michigan, she's the first in the country. She's going to bring a policy, strategy, and technology background to state government, including Most recently, she served as president of a global software company that helped organizations around the world move their communities to action. She's a Detroit resident, a two-time Wolverine, and a damn proud Michigander who's got both peninsulas tattooed on her wrist. So as Chief Growth Officer, Hillary will be housed within the MEDC. She'll work closely with the council to implement recommendations, chase funding, and bring stakeholders together. She'll lead a first-in-the-nation effort to tell Michigan's story of natural beauty, diversity, economic leadership. I'm excited for all of you to get to know and to work with Hillary and the council. So as you leave here tonight, or tomorrow wearing your sunglasses and popping an Advil, pace yourselves, right? I urge you to embrace the power of and. Think about all the incredible conversations that happened up here. Because to grow this great state, we all have to work together. We have to reject false choices. We need the power of and. Republicans and Democrats, business and labor, small towns and big cities, youpers and trolls. We all have, you know they call us there, right? Okay. We all have a personal stake in this effort. I have two, my daughters, one of whom's here with us today. Everyone in this room, everyone in this room knows someone, maybe even your own child, who went to college at one of our great universities and then started their career somewhere else. We need a plan to keep our kids here and bring those who have left back home and to lure others to make Michigan their home. We're building something special here, and we want everybody to be a part of it. I know every one of you considers the future when you make investments today. We all want Michigan to succeed. The Detroit Chamber's poll that came out earlier this week showed that a majority of Michiganders are optimistic about the state's future. Those are numbers we could not have dreamed of a decade ago. Michiganders believe in Michigan. They know our future is bright. Let's work together to build it. Thank you.
Joining the governor on stage, please welcome back Sandy Barua.
Hi, Sandy.
It is warm on this stage. Yesterday, I felt I was in like a Turkish prison. Great job.
I don't know how that feels. Why do you?
Speaking of transplants, we've only been in the state a dozen years. A lot of people don't know about my background. It's far more interesting than the blue suit, gives off. So, first of all, I'm so glad I get this opportunity to spend a few minutes with you because the overflow room is at the Pink Pony. You have filled the house, Governor. Speaking of transplants, we've been here a dozen years, and it's home, and we love it. And I'm so glad you're focused on population. So what I find interesting is that you're not going to serve on the commission yourself. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tell us more about the thinking behind that.
So in order to make sure that we're setting Michigan up for long-term growth, we really need people outside of government because this is going to be an effort that's got to transcend any one administration. I will be governor for 3.5 more years, but this work has got to continue. And so it shouldn't be individual-driven. It shouldn't be party-driven. It really needs to be a focus on Michigan, on growing Michigan. I'll consider our work a success if we are on that trajectory and whomever comes after me picks it up and continues moving Michigan forward. So I didn't want it to be about me or about any individual. This is about all of us, and that's why I'm so grateful that Shirley and John were willing to take this on. They both wear a lot of hats. Neither of them suffers fools. They're going to get it done, and they're probably going to pull a lot of you into the work, and I'm really excited about it because this is about our state, not about any one of us, but it's about all of us.
And the other thing I noticed that I was really excited to see about the council is that you've built it in a bipartisan way structurally with equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans from the legislature on this.
Well, you know what? I know that we often get caught up in partisanship, and that's why I thought it was important to have real, robust representation from a lot of different perspectives. I don't, this isn't, like I said, it's not about my agenda, it's about our agenda. And I always feel like I make better decisions with real representation around the table. That's why we've done the work that we've done in this administration, but that's why we created this council the way that we did. And I had an idea of what we wanted it to look like, and then we started getting feedback from John and Shirley, and we changed it a lot. But I think it's a much better product already in terms of our vision and structure. And so I'm hopeful and I'm confident that that philosophy will continue as they pick up the football and move it for the next 6 months.
Well, I know them both well. I think you made terrific selections in both of them. So I'm really excited to see what that council does. So a big part of the work that this council is going to have to do, and that you have already been doing, is really focused on education. And the key that education is to the pipeline into our businesses, to keeping families here. So talk to us about what you have done, and then I'm going to ask you about what you're going to do in the remaining time as governor on education.
So every one of us knows that at this conference, every year we talk about improving educational outcomes. And I'm glad that we do, but we have struggled as a state to make sure that we're really moving forward on improving outcomes for kids. And then, of course, despite being able to put some resources, long overdue resources, into education of our kids, we had a pandemic that was another disruption and incredible setback. So while we have closed the gap in terms of school funding from wealthy areas to areas that aren't as wealthy, we've built equity on top with more resources for at-risk and English language learners and kids with special needs. We still have work to do to improve outcomes and make sure that our kids have the wraparound services that they need to get back on track. As I talk to parents across Michigan, the preeminent concerns are around school safety, which is part of why we work so hard to get the common sense gun violence prevention bills done. They're worried about mental health, which is part of the reason that we've built in counselors and unprecedented resources for mental health supports for our kids. But they're concerned about outcomes as well. And I think, like any parent, I totally understand that. And that's why that's what we continue to be focused on. And that's why I think when John and Shirley get to work and talk to groups that have been doing some of this work, whether it's Launch or other organizations, I'm hopeful that all these different pieces can come together in a real plan that will improve outcomes for kids.
And then the next step beyond our K through 12 system is the workforce training piece. And we've had lots of sessions here focused on workforce training. You've built some terrific tools in Michigan. Going Pro, which you have expanded, Michigan Reconnect, Future for Frontliners. What do you see next in terms of workforce development, taking those who are already done with their K through 12 experience and getting them the skills that they need to walk into our businesses?
So, there are a lot of great things that are happening across the state. I did the press conference yesterday, and, the folks that run Our Next Energy, we're talking about some of the great partnerships they have with some of the high schools to create internship opportunities for young people to see what is happening in cutting-edge technology and batteries in Michigan. Whether it is the Michigan Reconnect that we worked on so closely to create an opportunity cost-free for 25-year-olds and up to expand their skills. I proposed dropping that down to 21, which makes eligible like over 300,000 more Michiganders. The Futures for Frontliners, Going Pro, and the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. This, hopefully anyone who's got a student graduating this week or next week all across the state, hopefully they filled out their FAFSA, because that's the key to unlocking thousands from the state to drop that cost of university, whether it's private or public or community college or any other path. You can make a good living in the state in a variety of paths, and that's part of what we're trying to level the financial barrier for people.
And I would say for the employers out there, and most of you are employers, that the work that you can do to educate your employees about the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, the Detroit Promise. If your business is in Detroit, you've got Detroit employees. So many people don't know about these programs. I mean, it is One of the things that we found in our chamber poll is that 80% of Michiganders are completely supportive of for state support for 2 years of additional training beyond high school, but most people don't know about the Achievement Scholarship or any of the Promise programs.
Right. Well, and I think it's interesting. Someone asked me, isn't that just free college? Isn't that like a big, liberal thing? I'm like, it's workforce training. Like, let's think about this in terms of what it really is going to mean to that individual and what they're going to be able to do when they get this set of skills. And that's getting into a better paying job and, making a life here in Michigan.
Okay. Now, going back to the council, and I know you're not going to answer this question, but I have to ask it. So you must have some thoughts in terms of what it's going to take or some of the initiatives that it might take to start growing Michigan's population at a faster rate. I mean, I just want to be clear, we are growing. We're just not growing quite as fast as the rest of the U.S. I know you're not going to want to step in Shirley and John's way, and trust me, I don't want to get in their way either. I'm scared of both of them. But any thoughts that you have at this early stage?
I have some assumptions, but I want data. I want expertise that is informing the work. And I don't profess to have all of the answers. That's why I'm soliciting real thought leaders to make a table that they've got a lot of input and to make some real recommendations that are a Michigan plan for growth. Not one person's or another, but a Michigan plan for growth.
Okay. So I celebrated the fact that you had this bipartisan approach to this council. It's great. You have signed over 1,000 bipartisan bills as governor. And I just learned that. That is a stunning number. So talk to us about the state of bipartisanship in Lansing today.
So, obviously there's been a real shift at the Capitol, and I'm grateful that I've got some wonderful partners with whom to work. I'm building relationships with both minority leaders. We hold quadrant meetings. We continue to do that. People say, now the Democrats control everything. You don't need to talk to them. I'm like, absolutely I do. It's
a pretty thin margin.
We have a one-seat majority. We are a state that is diverse, and every person matters. And that's why we know that you'll never find common ground if you're not talking to one another. And even when you are talking together, sometimes you can't. But my job is to do everything I can to try to make sure that the work we do is really reflective of what the needs people across Michigan have. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what your political philosophy is. I took an oath to lead the state of Michigan to solve problems and set us up for success, and I think all voices are important.
And some of the pieces that have been so important to Michigan, like Reconnect, like the SOAR package, like the auto insurance reform, were bipartisan. What do you see, coming around the corner that are your next bipartisan goals for our state?
Well, front and center for me right now is getting the budget done, and that has to be bipartisan. We do not want to look like Washington, D.C. I'm glad none of our congressional delegation is here.
But they're doing their job today.
Yes, they are. They're all there, which is good.
Yes,
because if they were here, that would be bad for everyone.
We need them there.
But I was the minority leader when I was in the Senate. I voted for every budget. It didn't matter if it was introduced by John Engler, Jennifer Granholm, or Rick Snyder. The state of Michigan budget is important for every single one of us. It's about public safety, it's about education, it's about the roads, and everything else. And that's why, this is front and center, and it's got to be bipartisan. It's got to get immediate effect so that we don't let the people of Michigan down in terms of doing the fundamentals. Next up, I'd love to do some work when it comes to climate and shoring up energy and making sure that Michigan is competitive and doing our part to address climate change. So there are a lot of different things on the list, but I'd put those kind of front and center for what I see as immediate needs that we need to make some progress on.
So moving to economic development, we had the SOAR package, which was terrific, and now our friends at Business Leaders for Michigan have dropped a very compelling package of kind of a holistic economic development reform. You have announced some initiatives in this space just here at the conference. What's your thought in terms of where we're going around consistent, robust economic development, not just to attract new businesses into our state, but to ensure the ones that are here are successful?
We have to have economic development tools, and I was really so proud that we were able to bring Republican leaders in the in the House and Senate who were in the majority last term together to the table and create some tools in Michigan. And because of that, we've been winning. And MEDC reports that they have more companies reaching in, whether they're incumbent businesses or businesses outside the state of Michigan, reaching in to explore the possibility of investing and growing here. I think that's incredible. I can tell you I was in Washington, D.C. for Select USA, which is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce event that they bring in potential investors from all around the world. We met with site selectors from different parts of the country, and a couple of them said, it was so smart of you to grab that Ford project and grab that Goshen project, even though there's been some pushback and some organized effort to try to undermine some of this. Because what it communicates to business is that if you're negotiating and planning on Michigan, you can count on Michigan. And I was very pleased to hear that, because I've seen some of those that are trying to rile people up and torpedo these economic development programs. But when we build a Ford plant in Marshall, Michigan, or Goshen in Big Rapids, it changes all of the ecosystem. It's part of why people say we're going to dominate batteries, because these are a part of the work that we've been able to secure in Michigan. And so I think we have to be bullish, we have to be united, and we're going to be successful. I'm pleased with what we have been able to accomplish, but I know we're capable of a lot more.
I know you caught up with Bill Ford while he was on the island, but I'm not sure you caught his presentation just a little while ago. But one of the things that he said was he and his fellow colleagues at Ford were so surprised that EVs have now become such a political issue. If you're a red voter, you're completely iced. If you're a blue voter, you're supportive of EVs. And to me, it seems like a little bit of that is playing out in our neighbors in Marshall.
But I think, too, there is an orchestrated effort to whip people up and to disseminate information that's just not accurate. And it's really destructive. At the end of the day, a person in Lake County, which is the poorest county out of all 83 in Michigan, that job at Goshen could get them into the middle class, could get them an opportunity that they never dreamt would be that close to Lake County. So I think, as I talked to my friend Dave Porteous, who probably a lot of folks here know, he was one of the biggest cheerleaders for it, because he recognized that this is going to change fundamentally opportunity in that rural part of our state. And so when companies are looking and people say, oh, everything goes to Detroit, it's not true. And guess what? It's not bad. If it's locating anywhere in Michigan, every one of us is benefiting from it.
Exactly. And you're all in for this. Yeah, no, here we go. That's absolutely. And you're all in for this EV technology transition that we're going through.
I am. We've got a lot of different things that are happening in Michigan when it comes to how mobility is changing and different sources of energy. Some of the hydrogen work is really exciting as well. But I'm also sober enough to know that ICE is not gone tomorrow.
No.
We've got to have a strategy where we're on the cutting edge of all things mobility and beyond. But I think we've got a lot of good stuff happening.
Yeah, John Dutton's not moving to an EV anytime soon, but the rest of the world might be.
That was a Yellowstone reference for those of you who
don't
know what Sandy's talking about.
Oh my God! Are we that? Am I that out of touch? All right.
I get you.
Well, thank you. I'm somebody. Lisa's in the audience saying they're good. I'm glad somebody does. So we have seen in the national news governors, Republican governors, who are in open warfare with business. You're a Democratic governor who is absolutely the opposite. You have been very open and very collaborative with business organizations, with businesses. Talk about your approach to, our business community.
In order to have good jobs, you got to have successful businesses.
Yeah, that does seem a fundamental tenet that some miss.
And the false choices that I mentioned in my speech, to think that either a business can be profitable or employees can live a good life, that's a false choice. Beautiful part of our history is that we were successful on both fronts for a long time. It's why we've got the beautiful diversity of Michigan, why we've got these strengths that are unique to this state. And so, it's stunning to me. If I could figure out how to move, Disney World to Michigan, I would.
Well, I think our auto industry would be very interested in the world of tomorrow or whatever it's called there. So I think you can do that. So you were reelected by an incredibly impressive margin. You are now, what, year 6?
5.
Year 5, thank you. So you got 3 years left. 2 questions. First question, as you look back, you've had a very successful run. What are you most proud of?
We've gotten a lot of really great things done. When I signed the Elliott Larson expansion, I signed it with my oldest daughter, who is a gay woman, standing next to me. And it was one of those moments I don't get very emotional often. Pretty, stoic personality by genetics, I think. But that was a moment that I really thought, my goal, like every parent here, my goal is I hope my kids will choose to make their lives in Michigan. And I have 2 daughters, and being able to make their own decisions about their health and their futures is important to them, but also the ability to know that you won't be discriminated against for my oldest. And so that was a personal moment where I felt really proud and grateful that I'm here and we were able to make that progress together. And you guys were a big part of it too.
And I have to imagine on the issues regarding a woman's right to choose must have been equally gratifying for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are 2 fundamentals. I would not encourage my children to move anywhere where they might not have the ability to make their own decisions about their bodies or might be discriminated against because of who they love. And so those are 2 things I think our people in their generation are watching closely. I know my girls are. I know a lot of their friends at school are, and young people across the country are. And so I think that's important, not just for us, but for our future.
And these are economic issues, too. It matters to business. So, looking forward.
I'm excited. I remember being up here last year, and I was talking with Coach Izzo, and I said, Tom, are you able to engage in the gun conversation? Tom, he's a youper. He does not weigh into a lot of political issues. And he said, you know what, Gretchen, I am, because I'm in the KMA phase of my career. And I was like, KMA? I see the MSU president sitting there, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. You know what the A is, and the first 2 are kiss my. But but he said, I am. I'll use my platform. And this was before, obviously, the shooting that played out on Michigan State's campus. And so just to see how liberated he felt. And I have a little taste of that myself. I wouldn't say I'm in the KMA phase. I got 3.5 serious years of work to do. But
you can say it out loud.
I'm excited.
We had Mark Cuban on this stage.
I heard.
The bar has been reset on the language at the conference. So let it fly, Governor.
To think everyone was clutching their pearls when I said fix the damn roads, right?
By the way, her comms team is back there, and I'm going to get beat up as we leave here.
No, it's liberating, though. I've got 3.5 years. There's a lot yet to do. I am excited about some of the great things that are happening in this state. I'm sober about the real challenges ahead, but it feels good to be here right now, and I'm going to do everything I can every day, every minute that I'm in this office to make sure that we set Michigan up for success, and then I'll hand it off to whomever comes next. There you go.
So we're winding down here. I'm going to ask a really tough question.
Yes.
What's your favorite part about being governor of Michigan?
I do this work.
It's a tough question.
It is. It is. I do this work because I love people. I really do. And I think during the pandemic, being so isolated, it was hard for every single one of us. But I get my energy from people. I get my inspiration from people. And, you know, as hard as many politicians don't like the campaign, I love it because it moves you around. It gives you opportunity to learn and to listen. And that is my favorite part of the job.
So before we end, I want to end with whatever final thoughts you have for our statewide and frankly global audience today. But I just want to thank you, but I also want to thank your family for the public service. It's not just you, but your entire family serves. It's a sacrifice for you all. Thank you for giving back so much.
Mark and Sydney are with us today.
Governor, final thoughts as we close up the conference.
You know, Matt, I really appreciate the power of and. As you could see, I embraced it. And I think that there'll be a lot of thought that happens as we all leave the island, a lot of introspection, I hope, and hopefully collaboration in the days and weeks and months ahead as Ambassador Ricolta and Governor Stancato get to work. I hope that you will all be active participants, not just in informing what the plan is, but also helping us continue to make sure that Michigan is evolving so that we are a growing state. We all have to be a part of it. None of us can do it alone. And if we're working together, I don't think anyone can do it better than we can. So I thank you for giving me your attention today and your partnership in the future. And I will look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of Michigan. Great job.
Thanks.
Great job.
John Dunn.
All right, we have just one small piece of business. It'll just take a second, and the governor's agreed to join me for this. I have the pleasure of announcing the 2024 Mackinac Policy Conference Chair, and most importantly, my new boss, Suzanne Shank.
Woo!
Governor, look how relieved Matt Elliott is. I've never seen him quite so relaxed.
And I saw Ern tell him run out before you could assign him something for next year.
Yeah, no, he's on the plane. He's out of here. Thank you all. We'll
Wonderful,
see you.
Suzanne. Yay.
And that's going to do it for our 2023 coverage of the Mackinac Policy Conference. Do not forget that you can find all of the conference sessions on demand and more online at onedetroitpbs.org. A huge thank you to the Detroit Regional Chamber for their support and partnership in all that we do together. A huge thank you to the incredible team at DPTV who has made this week possible. They are absolute pros. It has been my absolute pleasure to be your host this week. I'm Zoe Clark. Thanks so much for watching.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.